Hello, let's relax, immerse yourself in emotional stories, and explore the world of learning English through stories. Don't forget to press the sign up button and sound the alarm. Don't miss any new stories. Hello, let's relax, immerse yourself in emotional stories, and explore the world of learning English through stories. Don't forget to press the sign up button and sound the alarm. Don't miss any new stories. Part of the Siege of the Floating City. Chapter 1. Kidnapping Helen. Thousands of years ago in Sparta, a Greek city-state had a king named. He and Queen Leda had 4 children. Those 2 guys are Castor and Pedaeus, and the 2 girls are Stesta and Helen. King Tongue. Every man who meets her wants to meet her, but they loved her with a crazy heart. To the point, he swore to kill her and her husband when she's married to any other guy. Finally, the king, Chris, has to judge with the boys to propose that it's better to let Helen pick her own mate. The king made them swear, "I will obey this will. Help your future husband get her back." When Helen was abducted by anyone, Helen chooses her brother, Agamemnon. After the feast, the king found himself old. He handed over the mountain to his son-in-law. From there, Menelaus with his wife ruled the Sparta state. Right across the Aegean Sea, there's a city-state called Troy. Just because this state is premier, a rich and powerful king. He has an eldest son, Hector. Before Queen Hecate, the wife of King Priam, was born, she dreamed that she was about to be born. A flaming torch will burn the city down. Immediately after birth, King Priam and Queen, afraid the boy will bring strength to his people. So Priam hurried the boy to Mount Ida. He left because he didn't owe the child. A shepherd happened to find a bridge. Bring it home. She was born and named Paris. Since then, Paris has lived her life as a child. Invite another shepherd. You didn't know you were a prince. King Priam just for Troy. Right at the time of Paris growing up, to become a tall 2-on-2 boy. Bolos, king of Amphiramidon, the goddess of the sea, married. All the gods of Olympus were invited to attend. Even the crush, bad god of the gods. Hera, wife a tree goddess wisdom, and the goddess of love and beauty. Eric, the goddess of war, was not invited. She was so angry that she came by herself. Threw on the table of the gods a golden apple. There are lines above. For the most beautiful woman in the world. Hera, Athene, and Aphrodite both want the apple. Come on. So there was an immediate conflict between them. For end the dispute, the crush told Eric the nature of the gods. Take the Kia apple to Paris. Give me a penny on Mount Ida and ask him to judge. Crush says. Paris gave that apple to the goddess. He thought it was the most beautiful. And so one afternoon, when Paris is shepherding on the slopes of Mount Father, suddenly 3 goddesses appeared. Hera, the bad queen of the gods, spoke first. Paris, give me that apple. You are the son of a king, though you do not know it. I will help you become the richest king, and the most powerful in the world. Paris hands over apples. But you think, let us wait for the judgment of the goddess Athene. See, so Athenians say, I will teach you to be the wisest and most famous man in the world. You will be wise and kind, loved and revered by all. Hear that, Paris, thought Belly. Maybe we should give the apple to Athene. But at the right time, the apple came in front of him and said with a smile, I will help you get the most beautiful woman in the world to be a wife. Without hesitation, Paris gave her the golden apple. From that moment, Paris sees itself. You can't go on forever as a guy, because Hera told him who his parents were. You're on your way back to where Paris launched king, father, and queen. Paris thought he was dead, so we're both very excited to see you back. They threw a big party around me and throughout the state, and then Paris with the brothers. Down the trees on Mount Ida, the boats. I hope I can cross all the seas, go to other countries, to find the perfect wife that the goddess April promised. Sister Paris, please don't go. Notify him in advance that it will bring suffering and mourning. Let all the people flow. But Paris just laughed at her fears. Then the Aggie hurried straight to Sparta. Manelo's king Saint Estata heard the name Paris, arrived. Welcome to the beach. Mira's grandmother in Paris anchored the boat. Come ashore and receive as a guest. Paris followed the king to the palace, to a place filled with Helen and idols. I remember seeing her shadow. Jen knew that she was the woman. April promised to give it to me, because Helen is so beautiful that it's hard for anyone to match her. Soon Manolos had to leave for Brighty Island. But when Manolos was away, Paris has courted Helen, though coaxing her to take all of my husband's treasures on his boat, to cross the sea with him to the floating city. Chapter 2. The Greek heroes keep their oath. The goddesses Hera and Athene hated Paris because he gave the golden apple to the goddess April. Hurry back to the boat. You see gold and silver. All the treasures in the palace were stolen. My wife is lost. He loved Helen passionately. I remember the happy moments with her. He found himself or had to take Helen back, or have to die to be satisfied. But think of Helen's beauty. He understood immediately that Paris will never give up on Helen, unless raped. But how do we get Paris to return Helen? The city of Troy is beyond the Aegean Sea, but Brian is a powerful king. Finally, Miras went to Agamemnon, his brother, to ask him for advice and help. He goes to his brother's palace in Mexico. He saw Agamenon talking to Nick, a wise old king, T6 of Polox. I've known Highland for a long time, Nastor, he said. I must immediately go to all the kings. The princess AI is also willing to bring ships with soldiers. Help Miras get Helen back. This great army is back. Alice lies by the beach meeting. Heat-seeking insects by head, coming up from the ships, and from the barracks pour raw. Your heart is full of pride. All the heroes were there too. Brave boy mixed with Acolyte, king of the mightiest hero in Greece. The Angelist was the son of Pelis and Thetis, the goddess of the sea. A hero that everyone knows through these strange legends. The goddess Thote knew before her child cannot avoid a grim fate. Jen will die when he is young. After the birth of Chocolate, she took the boy down to the Baltic River. Left heel of angels, dipping bridge down Extic line. Let the river water soak your whole body, by which angels become immortal. What weapon on earth can kill you, except injury to the left heel? The hand of the goddess Teltis holds the boy. The people of Ithaca. It is under the control of a wise king than you. There is news. Odysseus did not want to leave his young wife. That's Nam. To cross the sea with the Greek warriors. To the battle, forever drifting through the city. So he faked madness. He won the bull. It's a beach full of sand, but a prince who knows the trick. Home. Adius did not harm his own son. Let the cow stop. Then, the Greek heroes knew that Odysseus was only faking madness. Force him to push in. The army is assembled in Alice. When the soldiers are ready to go, and the Greek heroes gave the ships their anchors, straight to the floating city. 2 Tenodos. They anchored from Eurus to enter Troy. Jacobium team returns, Helen and the stolen treasure. He was the wisest man in Greece. When Erissus and Menoris entered the city, and a noble of Troy hurried out to meet. They said, "Let them both know." And King Premium really wants to give Helen back to Mira. But Paris insisted on laughing. Midias begged desperately. And Odes tries to use soft words and clever arguments to make people, I fell in love. But the boys, and all the boys, with the worm sails to S. What day is So, Odes and Miras went back to and there's no hope of getting Helen back. Unless the Greeks take down the fortified city of Troy. Meanwhile, soldiers don't sit around waiting. It is believed that a powerful army is about to invade. They prayed for the help of all the kings, from neighbors to help them keep the city. In answer to a prayer, Hector was found, the oldest and bravest son of Premium. There's Alice, and the Aperide cousin Hector, Asinus, unusually tall, son of the god of the sea Poseidon, and many other warriors, both from the Togras on the North Pole, and from Lisa on the South Pole, by King Sabadon himself, the child of the Crush leads. The angels were also sent down to Etobia to save the king of this land as Mamain. But Mamain is far away, and it's unclear if he'll be back in time. When the Greek warriors had just landed, they saw that my side gave the entire army ready for battle, and the two sides immediately rushed into the fray, lived together forever in a terrifying battle, terrible and cruel. The Tower of Store and Sirius slay the Greeks as they fall, until the angels came in. It's like flying a chariot, the boy along the drifting line, the shadow of the sun. The angels went to the chain, but his spear, even Sao can't beat the snooze, because he is the son of a god, and can't be killed by any mortal world. Several times Angelus pierced his wife, Giant, but no talent, that his skin was so bruised that it spilled blood. See so Angelus rage. The guard threw his shield into the room with him, by hand not. He tossed the universe over his head, and clasped his neck with his hands until he suffocated to death. But the god of the sea, Poseidon, couldn't take his eyes off his son. ATS turned around to throw Sonic's body on the car. I suddenly saw that there was only his armor on the ground, and Angela saw nothing. Outside, a flock of swans flying through the clear blue sky. And to remember that day, the Greeks called the swan genus. Chapter 3, The Argument of Angels. The courage of angels in the last battle. It scares my soldiers, so they no longer dare to leave the shelters on the wall to be pitted against in the open field. Follow the advice of Ordeus, plotting the Greek warriors to dig a deep trench, to build a war with 5 gates, and gather all his troops to his camps and his ships. Take this opportunity. The Greeks attacked other city-states on drifting land. Angels take over our leaders and get her preset, a woman there, and connect with her. It is believed that Kojasex is very sad. I found Agamemnon. Give all your possessions to redeem me. But Agamemnon wouldn't leave. She was angry at the old man. Order him to be expelled from the Greek camp. Let the poor check out. Tears in my eyes. And when the shadow of the Greek camp passed behind, Put your hands up in the sky. May Apollo help me. Hear the plea. The sun god fell on the Greek army. It's a terrible plague, bringing horses and cattle with the Greeks. There is no goods. Every day, 10 roller raw die. After 9 days of the plague, into the 10th day, Angelus must urgently summon a council of soldiers. Table how to deal with. A genius box B.A. Cantus stood up and said, "If you promise to protect me, I'll let you know." Why was Apollo so angry and send disaster on us Greeks? But even if you keep your word, I dare not speak, because of what I'm about to say. We'll make the most powerful man on our side. Rage, rage. Until Alex assured me he'd stand up for himself. Because of the new talent Bea dared to bear planet. Apollo is angry. Because Mr. Agamemnon was cruel to him. Your high priest. And Apollo won't forgive us. As long as Mr. Agamemnon. He has not returned her justice to her father. And give 100 cows to the priest to forgive the Agamemnon. Listen to those words. Agamemnon immediately burst into anger and screamed, "If you force me to return, Natrake, Hiudim, I want someone else to take my place. It's not fair. When there's no one in this Greek army really lost, captured the spoils apart from me. Ask the name of King Lamb. Who do you want among the Greek soldiers? I have to give back my spoils to you. We just finished sharing. All that's taken from the city-states has captured, so we can't ask. People are going to give those spoils back. Put your faith in the gods in heaven, and ever get the city of Troy. I will give you back more than that. You just lost a lot." But Aegon is slowly responding. These brave angels. Don't deceive yourself that way. Or thought I'd go home, while you keep your share. Everything is fine as long as the Greek soldiers give me another virgin to make up for losing her. Justin is 0. I will personally come. Take it for yourself, whether that virgin is yours or anyone else's. Angela screams loud. You are an imbecile. How dare you hope Greek soldiers can even submit to a man like you? I have a grudge against any troll. They didn't steal my property or my wife's. It's because of you and Edels that I came here to fight. And now you've forgotten it. They want to steal my booty. A virgin that we had to describe in conflict. Take the road. Life is often so ironic. As they advance into the floating city-states, I was the one who had to lead the soldiers in stealing the money. But it's time to divide the wealth. You always want the fat part. That's the basis. I should go back and leave you here. That won the victory. I will make your name known. You don't need my help. Go back, said Agamemnon. I will not beg you to stay here. I know you are brave. Not be harmed by any mortal weapon. But that's only the grace of the gods. Give it to you. I don't care at all about your anger. If Apollo had forced me to return Pepsi, I will obey you. But I will come to your camp. Take the part you just shared. She preset Qdim. That's what we do. I want you to see that I am more powerful than you. Listen to that. The angel was so angry that he put his hand on the hilt of the sword, as if he had drawn his sword out of its sheath. Then the goddess Athene came down. Stand behind him. He put his hand on the blonde hair of Eros. He hurried back to her. Who are you? He asked. Lady Athene, come down here. I am here to help you if you obey me. The goddess Hera sent me. Because you love me, and Agamemnon. Put your sword in its sheath, and stop arguing. Agumon will be punished for this offense, if you do as I command." Astraeus said, "I dare not fight the gods." Then put the sword in its sheath. "Preset is my wife, because you shared it with me. I thought you could get her back. There's something to remember. If you touch anything else, both in our homes and in our ships, I will swing this sword and kill you. And before this sword, I swear that soon, you and all the Greek soldiers, you will regret the day you insulted me, the bravest warrior of all Greece." Just finished, he went back to the office. I don't even look back once. Agumon sent her father Christe back to her father. 100 cows as a sacrifice to Apollo. Angelus to let the preset go, but pity her to the heart. I swear that I and my friends, Biden will never fight again, even if Agumon pleads. After a long time, since you were taken away, she preset Tats off the beach, sitting alone. Then he remembered the mother of the goddess Thatix, and raised his voice. "Call. Mom, I knew I had to die in my youth. Big rice spill. I had hoped to be honored, and be famous in this short life. But now, Agumon has humiliated me, and steal from your estate the most valuable spoils." The goddess Thatis heard him. "When you're sitting in your palace, forever under the deep sea, at the foot of the waves," he hurried up to the water. "Then it shows up right behind you. Listen to me tell the story." Then he comforted me and told him to cheer up. He promised he'll come up. Pray to God, trust. Let him help the Trojans win, at least until the day. The Greeks must regret it, because of what they did to the estate. I was comforted by my mother. Go back to your ship. Chapter 4, Paris War Drama with Menus. Answer Thatix's prayer. The gods made Aegon taste defeat. I dreamt to him that, if you lead the Greek army to engage the drifting side, right under the sincere, then you will win. The next morning, Agumon invited the generals. Tell them about last night's dream. But not all of them want to pursue it. The war was one of them. The bad guy named Tustus suddenly spoke out loud. "What else do you want to do? Again, your town is filled with gold and silver, beautiful male and female slaves, with wealth. Then ask what else you want. Say." Then he turned to the other generals. "Why don't we put our mane back? Let the greedy king stay alone. It was he who dared to humiliate us, the bravest of our warriors." Adgus immediately stood up and said, "You idiot, shut up. What rights do you have to utter such words to the Agamemnon? Our king and our ruler just said." Odysseus just landed on the bad guy's shoulders, a punch as heavy as a club. He made the guy sit down on the ground, hands up to wipe away the turtle's tears. The rest of the generals laughed at the Paris test, and it was Odysseus' turn to speak. He reminded them how ashamed they will be if you don't keep your vow to get stung. "Helen's father, I admit, it is hard to be away from home all year, through another year, but what's more shameful than leaving with 2 hands? White," Chang replied. "Try to hold on a little longer, and swear that don't leave here until the city is gone." The rich Copenium has not been subdued. All the generals applauded. Appreciate what the Odious just said. Then Agamemnon bravely. The generals used to eat breakfast. And don't forget to tell everyone, sharpen your sword, what the leaves carry. Because he planned to fight the Greeks. Right today, after the fall of Greece, King Premium is still sitting on the watchtower, next to the city gate. You're good with your old friends. Look at the brave Greek soldiers. Go to the ground below. I saw her walking slowly towards the wall. He called her back. The elders whispered to each other. Love ravens both drifters and Greeks. There's nothing to be ashamed of when we have to fight each other. For a woman like Helen, she is as beautiful as a goddess. But no matter how beautiful, you should go back to Greece. Because she's the one who brought about the cataclysm. For us and our children, King Premium is brave. Come, my beloved, sit down with me. I don't blame you for causing this. This is the will of the gods. We have to obey what they said. Yes, now, tell me clearly. Because the powerful prince, that's who. He's in the face. Is a majestic and noble warrior. Helen looked in the direction her father had pointed and replied, Dear father, I am ashamed to be here. Gypsy father is reigning. I wanted to die, I owe you. The same day with Paris. Because I was thinking about leaving my husband and my baby girl. With all my friends. I've known you since I was young. But the gods arranged it like this. I dared cry. Now, please explain what you just asked me. The brave father is Agamemnon, a strong Hun king and also a brave warrior. Once you were my husband's brother. Then the king asked. And the general in the distance, who is he? I told you. He is not as tall as Agamemnon, but bigger. I'm sure you understand what I'm asking. He's not wearing armor, he's walking in the middle of the army. To encourage them and advise them. Helen replied, Father, the one I want to ask is Odie, the wisest man in Greece. He is the king of Italy, she said as she wrought tears. Thinking of all the suffering and mourning, she gave it to all her people. And even the people. When the two armies faced each other. Next to the open ground, next to Sincerely. The floating side immediately unleashed the army. Just advancing and shouting wearing shoes. The Greek side has been quietly moving forward. The leader of Koi's army was Paris. I have all my armor shining with my shoulders and arrows. On his side was a precious sword. I see the shadow of Paris. Made Maldos burst out with great joy. Think that multi-point revenge ours. He jumped out of the chariot. Straight towards Paris. Paris was terrified and tried to hide behind her. Fellow Troy. Yelled out the angry guy yelled at me. Slut screams out loud. I pray for you. Do not be born in this world. You will bring shame to all of us. The Greeks will laugh at you. I call you a coward. I didn't know before. How did you use it? To attract so many brave warriors. Follow you across the sea to steal another man's wife. You brought it to you. You and your friends. It's an endless suffering. And now your enemies will sell you. And you're taking your own shame. Paris really felt that she deserved to be humiliated. Shout store he, ho chai. I could never be a warrior. As brave as you. But if you want me to fight, tell your soldiers and the Greek soldiers. Just sit down. Let you and Belos fight. Whoever wins will win, Helen. Take her home in glory. That's the way it is. People have a chance to live in peace. And the Greeks will be content to pull back. To hear you say that, shout out loud. He immediately called on the two sides to stop fighting. King Premium and Aegon. Go to the front lines of both sides. Negotiate the conditions of the key or double. King Premium brought out a pair of sheep to sacrifice to the gods. He drew his sword again, and called out to me. If Paris kills Mal, Paris will have the right to keep Helen, and the Greek soldiers will go home in peace. But if Paris is killed, Barals will get Helen back. And if the drifting side, great to pay back debts. I swear to the gods, that, my Greek soldiers, we will stay here and fight, until the day when all the people, no one survived, and the floating city will turn into flat land. I swear, and the Aegon River, swinging his sword and slashing the heads of the lambs. And all the soldiers have been listening. The horse rushed into the city. Because you are not willing to sit back, to witness beside my own beloved child, face the aggressive medials in the duel. Hader and Ordus measured the distance. Paris and Beauty self-equip. Take weapons for the ceiling, depending. Paris has the right to release Lau first. Manala's dirty carry-up support. So the kindergarten was thrown out. No injury to him. It was Maris's turn to implore Crush. Then hurled the javelin towards Paris. The arrow pierced the shield, but just lightly touching the hips. So Paris still doesn't turn around. Now Morales swung his sword straight at the helmet. Paris is on team. The broken sword in his hand. So Miras grabbed the horse's fur in space. Hat shoes tied under Paris' chin. It's about to choke you. And if so, the virus will win. But the magical goddess Apre taught the German hat. Save those who are blessed by the goddess. Escape from death. Label money. Press yourself in the clouds. If the boy's body comes back floating in the accident, ring. Helen de Peppel can console herself about the defeat. Just then, the morals were still angry among the soldiers. Try to find Paris everywhere. Of course, a Choi can help him. Because they don't know where Paris is hiding. They're not trying to protect Paris. Because everyone hates those who have. Sowing pain and mourning for themselves. Finally, Agamemnon announced loudly to the floating side. Megillus has one. So give Hyland the treasure. A new commitment. I saw that the Greek soldiers were all applauding. Chapter 5 of the Armistice Agreement, violated. Now because they want to sow disaster for the people. The goddess Athene instigated them. Violation of the armistice agreement. Day disguised as Laodocus, the son of Angelo. Fast forward to an archer of the pack. You can shoot through the armor of Morales. Kill that guy. Your reputation will rise like wine, and you will be blessed by Paris. The stupid archer said yes. Take an arrow. Put it in a full stop. Aim straight for the balas and let go. The arrow pierced his hip. Caused a dark red blood to leak out. The wound is not heavy, so Mentas is fine. But see that? Agamemnon screamed out in anger. We have flagrantly violated the agreement. They have to pay. And he exhorted the Greek generals. Let the soldiers be naked. Like waves crashing against the rocks. The Greek army was overflowing one after another. Killing Troy army does not match hands. The VA world's voices collide. The cry of the wounded. That sounds horrible. On the flat ground beneath the floating city. Fresh blood, flowing red. In the end, the gods must be moved. Wake up, bleeding headful. Haters should call on both sides. Let's make a new truce. And lit up the Greek generals. Let's go out hand in hand. When soldiers on both sides are on the ground, Hector spoke up. Or listen, my warriors, and the Greeks. The gods were not pleased to see that we've stopped fighting under the agreement. As now, when all the Greek generals, they're all present. I'll be willing to challenge you to a duel. Who among the Kia generals? All that time, the Greek soldiers sat in silence, afraid to face a duel. With Hector Medelis, Ra is injured. But Agamemnon, the guy who helped him back in. Finally, Big Ass appeared. The soldiers whispered to each other in fear. When you see the tall body, his wide shoulders. The day was so brave that I also saw Tim beating down. But you know there's no escape, because you challenged the enemy. Don't threaten me anymore. Shouted proudly. I'm not a child or a woman. I have not tasted the battle. I will kill you. When there's a chance, in this duel between the morning sky. Long spear launch page. But can't break the long sword of Erat. It was his turn to launch the spear at the spear pierced Hector's shield. But he avoided kindergarten. Then with a sword, and finally with a handshake. Until the night falls. It was so dark that I couldn't see anything anymore. Now, Hector says, as you are so brave, and he's the best warrior in Greece. Now let's pause the experiment, because it's getting dark. I go back to the city and you go back to your camp. Next time you and I will fight. Until the time, death gives victory to one of us. Let's break up tonight as friends. Give each other gifts to praise. They're fighting fiercely. They broke up as friends. Tell Hector to give Isaac a sword. Isaac gave Hector a silver belt. Somewhere they left each other. That night Agamemnon had a party. Honda Iok at home. All praise Agamemnon about his brave deeds. The next morning there was a note and a troll to collect the bodies of the dead. And there was no fighting that day. Chapter 6. The next day, Agamemnon is Song Ten's political act. Fierce confrontation Troy troops. That day, O1A, honored by. He killed many proud warriors. Pushed the enemy back into position. Until noon. He was stabbed in the right hand by an enemy spear. He's left in conflict for a while. But soon after, the pain caused him to return. Excessive singing for the army to storm. Odysseus and Diomedes, two generals in line, the greatest of the Greek generals. He fought a war with Hector. They missed one punch paint into space. Hector. It was so strong that Hector was stunned and passed out. For a while he was forced to retreat. But Diomedes was shot by Paris. So he had to leave the battlefield. So there's only Odysseus left. I was surrounded by soldiers on all sides. So a warrior in excess. Cause cam injury. Ortyx's side is still engaged. But then deliver the wound and be alone. I almost lost my life. If you don't cry out for help. Hear the cry is, and Malas rushed to the rescue. Now the Greeks were dragged back to camp. Because most of the generals were injured, they are trapped. He's excited to win the chase. Close heels. Standing on his mighty ship, Aeschylus are good at observing battles. The Greek generals were injured. We run back to the camp. Angelus tells Paticus' table, "Dude, soon enough, the Greeks will have to kneel at my feet. I want to help them because they need me. Hurry up. Go see the injured. That waiting on the chariot, that's a..." He looks a lot like Dr. Mason. There's horses zooming past me. So fast I can't see my face. He saw the old man washing his wounds. Metron reminded me that Patolus, Nesto said bitterly. God thinks so. If all the Greek warriors were harmed, he doesn't know the Damarist. And the Agaman himself was injured. So, I brought Matron back. He was shot in the shoulder by a Parisian arrow. I wish I was young again. I will set up a glorious victory immediately. Go to Alex Van. Please lend me your armor. If he doesn't like Chinra Tran's body. Obeyed the old man. Batols rushed back to Arc. And Nestor also pulled the arrow out of Majun's shoulder. Clean the wound and apply a white cloth to it. The angels have not yet come to the aid of the Greeks. Because you can't forget what Agamemnon did to himself. But because Patrolus kept pleading, Angelus, please allow me to help my friends. So in the end, Aetors lent him his own armor and consent. Let him lead the Mabaidan warriors. So Patrolus put it on, the famous armor of angels, glistening under the bright sun. Lead the warriors. Mabaidan bravely rushed in, where there's been the most intense fighting, just like the wind blowing away the fog around the top of the mountain. Bartolet quickly repulsed the drifting troops out of the Greek junkyard. The army did not panic, but still bravely fighting all along the way. Artricus and Myra Plus. They each killed a general of the army. Nexer's 2 sons were able to defeat him. The 2 friends of Sabada, King Lisa and son of a crush. The immortal horses of angels. Face Seb. The 2 champions came together like 2 eagles. And after a brief but intense battle, Bartlett killed his opponent with a spear. God of death. I am deeply saddened by the death of my son. He looked down at the battlefield, and there's a terrible punishment in my head. For those who dare to kill their children. For the warriors. Mabaidan comes close to the heart, as if no one dared to show up, to prevent direct entry into this besieged place. But Troy is not yet at 7. Apollo the sun god is standing on the wall. Prevent Patrolus from climbing up. Come back, brave The sun god spoke. Troy will not be taken by your hand, or even by Angelus. Stronger than you fight. That's the will of the gods. And so the Pathlate retreated back to the plain, beneath the city of Troy. Chapter 7. The armor is taken. Hector is standing by her now. Down the strip of land, by fighting again. Or temple for returning soldiers. The roof under the walls. Apollo disguised as a friend of Ha, too. Come to him and remind him to leave immediately. 2 hours of patrol. Apollo will help you win the war. Hector immediately let the chariot rush towards the Patos. Patos jumped down Lin's left hand with the spear. Hepto, get out of the chariot. And they're going to fight. Bartolet aggressively charged at the enemy. But death came to him. God gave him a blow. He made the cap on his head fall off. Ever since, the proud universe has never rolled in the mud. Because that's the Angelus hat. It's invincible. The Patols are almost falling apart. By Apollo's mace-heavy punch, immediately rushed to pay one more blow, made the Patols fall to their knees. After many victories outside the battlefield, Patolus eventually died tragically in Hector's kindergarten. In front of the dying Pathlate, Hector said, Just recently, you are boasting, will take my splendid city-state, and captured the wives of the Trojans. You returned to Greece as a prisoner, but now you're dying. Arles was foolish to push you to fight me. Battle it, according to flight. Hegto, now it's your turn to boast, for the gods have delivered me into your hands. I don't have to fight you. But this time, Apollo struck first that it would soon be. They will also die, because Iraq will kill you at the gates of Troy, said the brave young warrior. Take a breath. Finally, his soul soared to the underworld. Stripped Archel's armor from the body, he decided to take the whole tank. But Automedon whipped the immortal horses. Let them go back to the angels. Leave the Patros body there. Galecus angrily called him a coward, but yelled out, just back a little bit. Take off your armor and put it on. The splendid armor of Aeton. It is the gift of the gods. Mr. Paris is married. Hector hurried to continue the fight. They fought bravely for a long time. But there was a forest. The swords of the Greeks surrounded, preserving the body of Denspet. To the point. One Troy warrior gets to the place where the patholes fall. Both sides are fighting back and forth. Greek woman wants to bring back the body of Pat. I want to throw it out to the dogs. Meanwhile, the angels stood by the ship. He looked down at the battlefield. Full of fear, he said to himself. The Greek crab was pushed back to the barracks. You panicked and ran away. Please don't let my friend Patrolus get away with it. At the right time, a friend he ran to his eyes full of words. Angelus, I've got bad news for you. Patolus is dead. Our troops are fighting hard to hold the body of the because the hater has taken away his armor. Alex cried out in a voice filled with bitterness. Hear your voice. The goddess Thatix came to him. He asked why he was so sad when there's Greece suffering. For insulting you. That's right, the angels replied. But I don't care about that. When now Patrolus is my best friend. The most beloved of my friends died. I've lost you and my armor. I won't sit still anymore. As long as you don't kill them, scream. With this knife. Oh my son. The goddess Cadex replied sadly. If you scream, it won't be long. You yourself must die. I heard that Alex started screaming. I wish I could die right now. Because I couldn't save my friend. He had to die in a foreign land, and I can't help it. He and all the Greek warriors was screamed to death. Oh, unfortunate argument. It made me sit here with my hands tied. But now, I'll try to forget that dispute, and we'll fight to capture the head. Repentance for the crime you took from me. My dear, but I want to take revenge on you. That's very good. Goddess. But the floats are holding my armor, and yelled out wearing it. You should stay angry for another day. I'll be back tomorrow. Give me the precious armor of the hand of God. The blacksmith who had the golden hands of the gods cast. Tell the goddesses to leave. Leave behind you the suffering angels. Chapter 8. The hacker killed. All night long, Chol's cry for BA Mouse Plus. The next morning, the goddess Thetis came with the armor she promised. The shield glowed under the morning sun, so that the barbarians themselves saw me. Terror. The angels are happy, because the armor reminded him. Take revenge for your friend. He walked along the shore, calling out. The Greek warriors. Here, you call. AIA is also excited to run again. Even the wounded generals. And, now the angel said, the two of us are not. If we continue to argue with each other forever, let's forgive each other for what we did, and put aside the pride of each. I'm ready. Ignore all that you did to me. Now, let's arm ourselves. Then the Greeks came out naked. Agamemnon, my heroes and my friends. Listen to what I'm about to say. I'm a fool to insult angels. I still suffer day and night because of the mistakes I made. And I was heartbroken by this. I'm glad to have resumed our friendship. Between Alex and me, we will send precious gifts. And she presets him. Done. Let's get everything ready for battle. Angelainen, I'm your friend. Thank you for giving me treasures. And now it's all. Let's equip the real world for a new battle. I alone am ready. In the words of the old sea, that day when Aetors attacked the drifting army, the gods are also friendly. Take off from Olympus. War. Heaven and earth clash from a god. He killed every warrior he met. And oh one, what weapons of the enemy can penetrate his bright mirror? The soldiers ran away when they saw his shadow, until they're cornered. The river flows around the city. Only some escaped from his hands. Everyone has to jump into the river, and was swept away by the rushing water. King Priamold has tall, standing on a tower high watching the frantic battle. I saw the soldiers being cornered. He ordered the warriors to stand guard. Open the city gate. The retreating army can run in. His neck burned with dust and blood. The warriors fled to the city, while Angelus and the Greeks were still hurrying behind. My troops have withdrawn, but shouted to stay outside. Let Priam vainly complain to him. Hurry into the city to escape. Because the old father saw the shining armor of the Ascetes glistening in the distance. And you know that the angel is getting closer and closer to find the head, but forsook the ear of my plea. He built his shield and was most sincere, waiting for Angelat to come. Eventually, the acrylics appeared. It is as terrible as the god of war himself. His gold armor plate, glistening in the sun. Before that scene, even screaming courage is scary. But he stood there, challenging the angels, deciding to live a fen. A T tolls the spear, but it's tight. Hater does the same. But the spear touched. Shield of At tolls, slide sideways, double fracture. So Hector drew his sword, all over the angels. But the Angelus stabbed the Troy warrior. Brave, a coward. The sword pierced through the pink neck, although the breath is weak. Shout out still urgent, Vanak. Give your body back to your friends. Let them be buried. But Angelus coldly replied, don't tell me about the funeral. Nothing can help you get out of it. Thrown 2 dogs torn apart. I heard that, yelled out loud. I have no chance to wait for you to change your mind. But you should fear the wrath of the gods, because soon Paris will kill you, even if you are a brave warrior. Stop out of breath. The angel took off his armor and yelled out of the body. He ordered the Greeks to return. The camp dragged by the body. But then, the old King Premium had the courage to go to the barracks. The Greeks met at Chol's at his tent to plead the wine. He gave back the body of his most beloved son. Win over his courage. He allowed her to bring the body back. The funeral of Shu. The death of angels. Now inside the city, people are getting together by dealing with a master of premium, advised. We can't engage, because singing out loud is gone now. I'm afraid the angels have ceased to destroy our city and kill us all. It's time for us to leave. I give this magnificent city-state back to the Greeks. The King Prime replied, we shouldn't leave the floating city. Let's stay at least until the day of Memnon. The King of Utopia brought his army. I'm sure that sooner or later, Miming will appear. No matter what. We must also know how to die like men's pages. Dare to face the enemy, not run away. To live the rest of my life in a foreign land. I am tired of the battle. Polyramas still answered the king. If King Mammon is on the way, come here, I'm sure. You can save this city and save us. But he's also very likely will also be defeated by Angelus and the mighty Greek. Why didn't we return her? Helen Deem and the wealth she took, even at a late time. to keep our homes from falling into our hands. Of the enemy, all the generals saw that Polydamas said yes. But O1A, I dare to agree. Paris waved to angry wily Polycamas say, Polyramas, you are a coward in battle, and a stupid plotter. If you like, sit at home, and I will lead the remnants of Ra Chen out of the name of all of us. Polydamas replied, Your stupid courage has brought so much suffering and unhappiness for all of us, and your advice is to destroy this city. Paris did not dare to say anything, because you know, I am the one who started this war. But he would rather die than give up Helen. Not long after, Mem should glory with a mighty army from Etobia to the rescue. The princes of Troy welcome you. The king was glad to see the guests. Excess gas use in the fluorescent armor. The next day Mem should, let's lead our army with our warriors, Ra Chen. The war was very violent and cruel. Soldiers on both sides fought bravely from the waves, far off the right flank. The battle angels have taken down 2 nobles, Choi, along with many other warriors, on the left wing, but should attack the Pelusian warriors. Without you, he ran in front of me to protect me, because the general is dead. Mammon's spear pierced through Tim, young the courage to make him die instantly. Sad and pained at my death, General Nexto Lao came to attack the Ethiopian king. The general must be dead. If Mem should not recognize the instrument, an old friend of his father's, he should have shouted back. He said he would never fight with her. So the old general's heart was broken with pain. Go find Angelus. Emergency about Valve. Boy, let's compete with Memnon to avenge his death. Angelus filling to face with Mammon. Between the 2 heroes, there was a terrible fight. I wear a hunting suit. Both sides of the sword face to face. Strong shoulders of both protruding. High. Surpassing other warriors. They both showed great courage and were not afraid of death. Blood from the wounds leaking out, and dust from under their feet, to rise to the top. All the gods are good at watching the battle, because both the Ascetes and the Mem were born of the goddesses. Death finally holds the scales of fate in his hands. The great warrior of Ethiopia fell to the ground, off breathing. A glimpse of Mammon dying in battle. Troops drifting with the Ethiopian warriors. They fled back to the city, excited about winning. Alex chasing. I hope that at last. The Greeks also captured the Troy. But when you get to the gate, he was accidentally shot by Paris. Straight into the left heel. It's the only place where human weapons can kill. Angelus, because the mighty hero fell. Hector's warning on his deathbed. So it's been fulfilled. Finally, thanks to Arak with his big shield. Odysseus carried the bodies of angels. His muscular shoulders. Bring back your business. She said she was never close. Any hero who died before Troy. As close. The angels are digging together and gathering wood to build a majestic pyre. The goddess Tellus herself was also dead. To the camp. The warriors executed Mimit to mourn for the brave child. He was killed in his middle age, just like the cruel fate you've known. After the goddess Teltix and the Brazilian wept, Angelus running out of tears. American ghost fighters intended. They set fire to his body on the pyre. They threw in. Choose the most valuable assets to pay homage to. The king used to rule. Then they collected the remains and buried them on the beach. Next to the Harris Ball line is always white foam. Chapter 10, The Wooden Horse. Odysseus was walking outside the camp one day. Then he met a wise stranger. Tell him an old prophecy about fate. As long as the sacred Athene, there is language in your temple. This city is not even 7. At night, Odysseus decided to take the statues, even if it is worshipped in your temple. located in the middle of Troy. He disguised himself as a beggar, hired sharp sword with clothes, tattered, and went with Damaris to Troy, to the place where the Domodes hid, at the foot of the wall. Meanwhile, Ortis approaches the gate, asking for money and food. The gatekeepers didn't notice. Beggar and ragged, dressed. So I let him go in. Ortis had been here before. He knew the road leading to the temple. Along the way, he always held up the hand of alms from any passerby, so no one realized. But to the temple, suddenly he met Helen. Coming out of the temple after the prayer, Helen got right out of him. Fear of Ortis being discovered, she hurried him home. When she locked the door, she spoke. Odysseus, what a risky attempt did you make? How dare you break into the city alone? Say it now. Will the Greeks capture Troy? If they get it, will Manella pick me up or not? Or he'll kill me as soon as he sees my shadow. I'd rather die here. Is to see that scene. She wept, and Odysseus answered, the Greeks will never take the city, as long as the sacred statue of Athena. He lives in your temple here. It is rumored that that statue fell from the sky, not by the hands of the naked. So I'm here to steal the Damaris. My friend is waiting for me outside the walls. You just need a helping hand. As two, we can easily overpower the temple guard and get the wall. Helen smiled at him through her tears. Not to hide, to conquer the courage of Odysseus. You've never seen her so beautiful, because her beauty doesn't fade over time and suffering, Helen said. I wish I hadn't left my dear house in Aspen and didn't set foot here. You're obviously crazy for foolishly listening to the seductive Paris. And if the Greeks take the city, who knows what will happen to you? But you're Greek and I have to help you. Come with me. I'll show you how to steal the statue. Helen led the Odysseus across the city into a small gate, then opened the gate to help the Damaris to sneak in. Then she led them back to the temple. The Odysseus and Damaris used their power to open the way to the temple, kill the guards, and take their wall. Hurried through the deserted streets to get to the little gate. Not long after, they arrived safely at the Greek camp. Get the wall. There is no doubt that the city will be 7 players whenever we attack the city. They were also pushed back by the army. In the end, more intelligent than you. Let the Greeks know. They had to use tricks to get me. You can't use force. So Odysseus thought of a magic trick. We have to build a very large wooden horse, he said loudly, so that all the mightiest heroes with us, they can all hide, in which a man whose face is unknown is afraid. 2 hands tied behind their backs, face covered in dust and blood to deceive the enemy. When the ships with us have just gone away, my army will leave the city to see our camp. They'll see only the wooden horse at the bottom. Now the guy who's tied up is coming. Tell them they're Greeks. He made that horse as a sacrifice. Athene prays for the throne of wrath, because they stole the sacred statue. And I also tell them that I am a stranger. The Greeks tried to sacrifice to the gods, but tried to escape. If he's smart enough to tell the story, I will float to the real statue and bring the wooden horse into the city. Instead of the lost statue, we've got to build that horse, so that the drifting army could not pull through the city gate. You have to make a big hole in the wall to get it in. They brought the horse into the city, in front of the temple. There, boy, I will light a great fire on the highest tower, to signal to our ships. Then my father will go to the horse, help the heroes who are hiding inside out. Now the Greek warriors and go. They will bring the ships back, and then go ashore and enter the city through a hole in the wall. By that time Troy had surely fallen into our hands. Here, Odysseus, give a lot of that. The Greeks were eager to get to work. They gave the Airpods a bunch of horses, because he was the greatest craftsman in the Greek army. Let people go up to Mount Ida and lower the trees. They're all working very hard on Airbus's orders. until the giant wooden horse is finished. And then they carve out heads and tails, so it looks no different. The real horse. When the job is done, Odysseus said, "My friends, it's time to be clear. Who among you is the bravest? Because now, we've got to do a risky job. We'll hide in the wooden horse. Either we take Troy, or get caught and die. As soon as we're all in the horse's belly, the rest of you must immediately burn the tent. On the boat towards the T-dot, Duong Main, go." A guy named Scene standing up. He said he could take that risk. All the soldiers were amazed, because before, Shannon has never been so brave. While his Greek comrades tied his hands and helped him prepare to deal with the troopers, the heroes are chosen. Start climbing up the ladder into the horse's belly. The first is son of chocolate, and then there's the orange next to Odysseus and Demeter, with many other heroes, until the horse's stomach is full. And then there's the AirPods, who built the horse. Because you know better than anyone. How do we close the door? They just came through. When the door is locked, the rest of the soldiers are on fire. Burn the camp. Then get on the boat and head west. That night, the people of Troy were celebrating. I used to tell a great story. So the Trojans believed that from now on they would be in peace. The long siege of the city is over, for their own eyes have seen the damned Greeks. Curse the same. The wall was immediately destroyed, and the giant wooden horse was dragged inside, in front of the temple of the goddess Athena. Later that night, all the people fell asleep. The old time should get up, softly across the quiet streets, to the highest watchtower. The guards have no AI there. They're all sleeping or drunk. I've seen a big fire. Then to the temple, where the wooden horse was standing glistening in the moonlight. He called out to the heroes hiding inside. Then they all step out. Follow the ladder that Airbus has already made. Climb to the ground. AI's heart is also beating hard when they lam weapons in hand, getting ready for the city. Sleeping, they ran to the door, the nearest buildings. Burning fire and swinging sword raw slaughter. The army's back on the ships. Through the hole in the wall. Spill it. Troy was captured in the blink of an eye. Odys and Menelaus know the way back in the city. I went to the house where Helen lived. After Paris, they broke into the house. David Puce was sleeping but heard a noise, waving the rope to take the world. Helen screamed and tried to run away. As soon as I saw the mucus, despite a sudden attack and without armor, still resists so bravely. But soon after, he was oppressed by Oedipus and stabbed to death. Ears still Lynn's sword waving blood. Morales turned to Helen. He was going to kill her. In a moment, he watched her now, standing with a red flame. I see her beauty is still beautiful. It's not the same year. The doctor forgot about killing her, and didn't care about all the sins she'd committed. Sad as a sword. He took her hand and quietly led her. They both returned to Sparta, and live happily ever after. Part 2. The Adventures of Odysseus Chapter 1. Your country of origin. There's Greece destroyed, so Troy is just a mess. The fire is burning. Then they got back on the victory boat. On the way back, they had all sorts of problems. It took years later. Some new generals have returned. Home state. Stor soon returned to his home state of Pelis. But Agamemnon power. You have to experience a tragic journey. While he was busy fighting in the city, her sister, Helen, fell in love with a boy named Aegetus and married him. In doing so, Agamemnon died in battle. A year ago, I returned to Aegetus cut a guard cock, standing on the high tower near the coast, to know before how the ships of Agamemnon came ashore. Reminds me of the boat. The guard rushed down to the Mercedes to deliver the good news. Give 20 pieces of evidence ready to hide in the lobby. Then down to me, and as if to welcome him and take him to the palace. And then he threw a big party. The heroes are back. It's time for the party. The armed men hiding behind the curtains have rushed out, along with all his loyal friends. At that time, Odysseus knew nothing about the murder. As if I heard that story. He had to be careful disguising himself as a stranger when you set foot on your homeland, for easy surface response. If there is also a rebellion in the palace, ambush ready. You have to go through years of adventure and many more strange adventures. Just return to Troy, fall into drift. The wind brought the boat of the Odysseus to the coast of the Tees, a country where the inhabitants are associated with the viewer as a friend. Odysseus and his men landed on Abaris and made this table and burn it down like we did with Troy. But Ordeus doesn't allow any AI to harm Marin, for the priest of Ab choose to protect Cho Marin and his priestly relative. Marin is very grateful. Give Odysseus gold and silver and 12 large barrels of flag wine. This wine is so strong that before drinking it, you have to mix 1 part wine with 20 parts water to avoid getting drunk. Odysseus loaded those gifts onto the battleship. Here's a great welcome. It was because of this wine that he escaped. When they left Exporus on their way, they encountered a violent sea storm. Take their boat out to sea. Lost the familiar route for a long time. For more than a week, they were driven south, lost in strange seas. On the 10th day, they landed on the shore of an island, the habitat of the lotus-eating species. There, Odysseus sent 3 men ashore to find food and water. The people of this country are calm people. Friendly, they eagerly invited the strange sailors to taste the strange lotus. Anyone who eats doesn't want to leave the island and willing to stay there forever, to dream beautiful dreams. Forget the outside world. 3 boys are sent by the Odysseus to eat. I ate this gift, so they're happy to sit down, bathing and dream. They did not return to Odysseus and went looking for him. When you know what happened, he forced them back to the on the riverboat. He tied their hands and feet, then stretched out the mane like flying away from the scary island. A few days later, they went to another church. They didn't know it was Dame Selpie's country, a giant breed. There's only 1 eye in the middle of the forehead. They live in caves, among the hills and pasture the flock. Odysseus anchored the boat at a discreet bay behind an island, small, to avoid the eyes of those who live on the big island next door. All that day, they hunted wild goats. Bring it back and sip roasted goat meat, along with the wine glasses. Baron's gift to the priest of The next day, Ordeus and 12 friends went to the big island. Let's see who's up there. They saw a big cave near the coast. There's no AI in the cave, but inside, they saw big baskets full of cheese. They ate fresh milk, and the young birds are locked in a spig. There are stones around. The scene looks so serene and warm. The boys are going to get a lot of formats on the ship. But the gloved Ordeus was afraid of being discovered by the owner. So they sat down, sipping format with Marin's wine vase. They brought the I went to a giant who walked in. He threw a wooden shovel on the ground to make wood. Then, he led the sheep into the cave. Then lift a huge flat stone and seal the cave door. 24 horses can't even move the stone. Then giant chicken goes milking sheep. Pour it into 8 for dinner. All the time Odysseus and his friends sat still, very still, because they know they are hang girl, giant one, and just ate his format. The giant suddenly discovered that he was a stranger. He asked who they were. Ordeus replied that they were Greek warriors, returned from Troy, and are adrift in the sea because they're lost. Boy born giant, be kind to them for the sake of death. The giant broke up and said, it's better than don't tell him where their boat is. So, he replied that his boat had been punched off the coast. That's what the giant chicken didn't say. Only sleep. Suddenly, 2 of the boys died instantly. Throw it into the fire and eat it. Finished eating, and drink 8 milk after 8 milk and roll out to sleep. Orsis determined that when the giant chicken fell asleep, it would kill the chicken. But I suddenly remembered the remaining 10. It's impossible to move towards the giant land, blocking the door. So even if you kill the giant, they are also locked up here forever, until you starved. The giant killed 2 more people for breakfast. Ronaldo shows sheep out of the cave, and don't forget to put back the berry. But Oleus had not lost all hope, because you've come up with a magic trick. The giant has not touched the wood in the cave. Odious dragged Ra, cut a 2-stride long section, and cut one end. They planned for the night when the giant fell asleep. 4 of them will stab Kia's head in his eye. The queen came down. The giant came back and dragged the sheep back into the cave. And then the stone blocks the cave. Then he killed 2 more and cooked them. In the 7th grade, Odysseus took a wooden 8. Pour Marin's very strong wine in, without adding a drop of water. Bottle of wine to invite the giant. He had never tasted wine before. I drink 8 to 8. So soon the Selb guy would be happy. Give Otis a gift, he asked. What is your name? My name is no one. Then we'll kill the Kia first. Who will make the last meat? The giant said. That's the gift I gave you. When he finished, he fell asleep. Orus takes the long cut wood. Put your head on the fire until it's red. Group of 4 boys pierced the only eye of the giant chicken. The chicken in Salampe roared and got up. I've been calling out to my fellow species that live in the nearby caves to save. Who asked messing with you? The seller asked. No chicken is going to kill me. If someone doesn't hurt you, why do you wake us up? The Selbs screamed and we all rolled back to sleep. Odysseus burst out laughing. Because I think I've fooled the Selbs. The next morning, the great stone came out of the cave. He's sitting right in front of the door. Reached out to grab the prisoners as they ran out. But Odious thought of another plan. He tied the 3 sheep together in groups, and tied each of his companions in the midst of the flock, so that the giant chicken can only touch the animals outside. Same. As the flags passed through the cave, Giant Cock groped each top one by one. But I don't know if they carried the prisoners, waiting for someone to leave the cave in peace. Odysseus immediately untied the rope for the comrades. Hello, knitting sheep, down the boat. They pulled out their anchors, and they put their fast sails out to sea. When they're out of danger, Odysseus knew loud brawl. If anyone asks you who blinded your eyes, you say it's Otis, son. So the giant begged the god of the sea, or prevent Reset from returning home. Or, if you can come back. First you have to travel for years, meet all the difficulties. Only one body came back alone, with so much suffering waiting at home. He threw a giant rock into the sea, the rock that fell right behind the Orus's flotilla, to make a big wave. Keep the boat away from the island. Odys and her friends are out. Continue the journey. But Poseidon Dialectics, CA, heard the words of the giant, blinded and not letting go. Chapter 2, Shamanish. Odys and his friends are back at sea. Until the day I was lost on another island. They came ashore, but they didn't know which monk it was. But this place is Ia, the witch of Shah. Holding the sword, Odious climbing to the top of a high hill. Standing on top of the hill, he saw smoke rising from a forest. And I guess there must be a house there. He went there alone, but then he said to himself, we'd better get back to the boat and take you with us. Have experienced. He heard that. You can also encounter giants in this world. Aggressive meat-eater. People. So the next morning, Odious divided Ra's companions into 2 maths. Assign Ordatus to lead a math. For his part, he is the head of Kia, and they put it in a space capsule or a wood marker. One for Ordit. This one is for the Ordicus. BA for hugs. Right where it grew up, or sow. One AI moves the bed even, unless he cuts down all the roots in the ground. It wasn't until this point that Hanapi ran to Odie's. Hold the boy in your arms and kissed him. Please be angry with me, she said. I was always afraid that a stranger would come here to decide who has to go to Kia's house. Cheating card, impersonating husband, but now he told me something mysterious about the bed that no AI has ever seen or known. Apart from us and old Olympia faithful, they kissed again. And her white arms like that. You never want to leave your husband again. Oedicus told her about every adventure. Then they walked back to the room. They shook the hat hard. Old leopard Ordisha, in front of the torch. The gods have finally brought their spouses back. Peace and happiness that you both have been waiting for. And the wood of Oriantis splashed out, so full of fear. Oriantis led 20 of his men into the forest. Odious and 20 people in his team stay in the boat waiting. Only then will he calm down and tell the whole story to the Odi. They went to the house in the forest and met a beautiful witch. His sake, wolves and lions have tamed, playing in front of the house. When I saw the guests, I jumped up to welcome them thanks to the good dogs, and surround the boys when they are standing in front of the road, listening earphones. Seiko's sweet voice echoed from inside out. Then one of them called out, and Seiko stepped out. In front of her is a loving woman, wearing a white dress filled with jewels and gold. Is opening the door, inviting guests in. But Ararotis kept hiding outside and tried to stare through a doorway. Look in the book. He saw Sako and the others mix honey into wine. Invite the boys. They just finished drinking. Then you pick up the magic wand. Touch each one softly, so they turn into pigs. She dragged them out and locked them in a small hut, and Orditus hurried back to the boat with the bad news. Heard the story odious? No. Fold the sword band. Take the bow and save Arian. Let's go back to the house with him. But Erdis was so afraid that Odious set out alone on the forest microphone to find Shako's house. On the road, filled with a page, Nam, Ni, Tuan, Tu, the boy took Odious's hand and said, "Oh, unfortunate one. I still hope to save my friends. Escape from the hands of a powerful female shaman like Shop or Sao." Oldest boldly replied that he would try to find any way to understand Odysseus. The boy picked a white flower. Give it to him and tell him, "Take this flower and wait." When Sako let him drink his glass of Kia honey, then show her the flower and make it clear. Hermes gave it to me. Then he drew his sword and made her promise not to hurt him with a wand. If Hermes disappears, Boreas walked to the house in the forest. Why did you invite him in? Let him have some wine. Has been enchanted. Then the herd tried to touch him with a wand and told him to go out to the hut where the pigs were. Just been enchanted. Then Odious gave the white flower and the sword of life. So Seko knelt down at his feet and shouted, "You must be Odious from Ita." Hermes told me he will visit the mountain. I let my way back. Come, let's treat each other as friends. You don't have to be afraid of me anymore. She was enamored of her subordinates bringing food and wine, but Odious just sat there quietly. Father Bruro thinks you should cut your diet. Sako finally went to the hut. Use magic to transform them into human beings. See you, Odious. They cry for joy. Thank you for saving them. They immediately return to the boat. Tell the sailors Kier is Joker. I want everyone to live with her. Oriantis intimidated them enough to say, "We'll turn them all into wolves or lions." Hear that the boys broke up, laughing at Audiotas's apprehension of indifference. We all ended up filming together. Back in the forest, Seiko welcomes and hosts a party of 7. For a year they lived there with her. However, after a long year, they begin to miss their wives and children and want to return to it. They didn't know that on the next journey, they have to deal with other dangers. The shaman Sako told them first. A lot of trouble is waiting for them, and begged them to stay here forever with her. I also feel that they are determined to continue the journey. She told the audience what the dangers were. Waiting for you. Tell him how to escape." Audrey listened and remembered everything she said. Then they took off from her. Sako made the mistake of returning to the forest, and Odious and his friends are out to sea. Floating through strange seas, they just walked a little bit. The wind is calm, and the sea is calm. They saw a beautiful island in front of them, and hear the melodious singing coming. Thanks to the advance notice, the audience knows that's the sound of events. The page is of beautiful women, but the heart is deep. Still use the melodious singing to lure sailors to their country. But any guy who set foot on the island and let out that magical CA scandal, I don't see them coming back. Odious took out a large beeswax, cut into small pieces. He told you to put that beeswax sample in your ear, to no longer hear her voice. For my part, Odysseus was curious to hear that singing audition, so he told his friends to tie up the walk, tighten him to the bomb, and never untie. No matter how much you beg them, set it up. The sailors, sailing across the island. From beneath the waves, the Canadian voice echoed, "Stay with us, Odious." The Sarin girls sing, "We will give you all understanding and wisdom. We'll just paint you a lot of things. Let him be the wisest man in the world." Oriantis kept tightening the rope, so the boat crossed the island peacefully. When I can no longer hear the voices of the sisters, then the boys took the grave that was about to be taken out of the ear and untied Fraudus. Chapter B. A standing rocks and swirling waters. It's not that far. Before the bow of the boat, a channel appeared. Narrow is sandwiched between two rocky ridges, soaring black underground, beneath the Rocky Mountains. The membrane on the left is a violent vortex. High membrane blocks must look non-threatening, but Shako informed the Odysseus about that rock in advance, as well as the swirling water. There's a deep cave at the foot of this rock on the right, the abode of a violent monster. Name is Estella. It has 6 very strong heads. Each Asla's head is attached to a long neck, twists and turns. Every mouth fades 3 hungry teeth, and 12 long tongues, the tip of the tongue with a sharp claw. I just want to catch anyone who comes by. All those dangers. Your car has been warned by Otis. You know that the swirling waters, or when it's easy to swallow his boat. The monster Estella is good. I can only touch a few of them. That's it. So he told you to sail close, towards the rock on the right. But don't let them know in advance. There's the monster, Estella, are hiding in a deep cave stalking passers-by. They've just sailed across the straits, just anxiously watched the swirling water. The boat swerved through the narrow water clipped between. The rock has Angela's monster hiding in a deep cave, stalking passers-by. They've just sailed across the straits, just anxiously watched the swirling water. Suddenly the 6-headed monster Estella rushed out of the cave, caught 6 people on Odie's boat. The boat swerved through the narrow water, caught between the rocks, spinning bridges and cherry bisque swirling waters. And finally, Ra reached a vast sea. Everyone is tired. Heart, I am not alone in losing 6 friends. The boys begged for the Odious. Let them rest. In front of their boat, now there's a spectacular island floating around, the sound of the waves and the sound of the sheep. From the lush green fields, it's the sacred island of Taranacha. Odious remembered Shako's warning, as if you guys to kill the cattle of the sun god on the island for meat, they will all pay for their lives. He informed you of Sako's instructions and told them to row on, not visit the island. But Ariantis was angry and said, everyone is tired and can't row anymore. So they had to go ashore for dinner, then sleep a good night on the beach. Arinotis said that the entire crew showed up. They won't go on tonight. Odys did what they wanted. He made you promise, will not touch the sacred cattle. Then they went ashore together. That night, a terrible storm was raging. And then for a month the sea kept moving. So their little boat, there's no way to put Maine out to sea. The sailors ate all their food reserves and drink all the wine you brought. So soon after, they're beginning to suffer from hunger and thirst. They can't take it anymore. Odysseus alone climbing the hill on the island. Pray to the gods for help. finished praying. He found a shelter and fell asleep. When Odysseus is away, Odysseus managed to convince the crew, slaughter some of the sacred cattle of the sun god. When Odysseus comes back, he smells of barbecue and know immediately what happened. He is angry to the extreme and didn't touch that meat, but the entire crew kept eating for 6 days. Then the storm died down and the bright sun came out again. Then they left the island. They were punished for their sins. When they can't see where the land is anymore, there's a violent uprising. The wind knocked down the sail and lightning struck the boat. They broke in too. All crew drowned except for the Odysseus, because he tried to hang on to the broken mast. Odysseus struggled for a long time with the ocean. He clung to the steeply sloping mast, naked swimming, and finally, the ocean's waves washed up on a sandy beach. On an island, the bucket held tight in her flutter and treat him very kindly. Boreas has always wanted to return to see wife again, male Penelope. But no boat passed near the island. As for his own fate, he had no boat to sail on, although living happily with the first Detzel. It's beautiful and kind, but Odysseus is not happy. Because of your heart, there is no moment to erase my homesickness. However, finally, the gods have compassion for Odysseus and sent Hermes to meet the Canadian fairy. She's an immortal fairy. Let the clip show now. Raw god Hermes. She set on the table the delicious sorghum of the gods and poured out a glass of fairy wine. While Hermes rested for pleasure, she asked the reason for the visit. Russ sent me, Hermes replied. He said she was keeping a boy with her, always in the heart, homesickness, and the desire to return home. He's one of the Greek warriors, the most courageous of the siege of Troy, and fought for 15 years. They captured this state. On the way back, you and your companions have offended the gods. The gods made them suffer. But now Odysseus had tasted all the punishments. Just tell her to let him go. The gods want Odysseus back home, and don't have to leave your body in a foreign land. Think of the edge to lose, Udiso, Eliseo, melancholy, but she knew she had to obey the will of the gods. So I went looking. The boy is living in loneliness and unhappiness. She saw him sitting alone on the beach, tortoise tears-pierced eyes looking out to sea. Think of your wife and home. Charlie stopped by him and said, Odysseus boy, forget all the sadness, because I'm about to send you back. Build yourself a wooden boat. I will CHU. Give him food and water to carry. Then we'll blow the right winds. Let the boat return to its home in peace. It is the will of the gods that I must obey. Odysseus expressed his sincere gratitude to her. The next day, Canada brought him a carpenter's kit. He cut down the tree and built himself a boat. There's all kinds of masts and sails, big and small. 5 days later, the boat was finished. Give him a lot of wine and lots of delicious food, strange things. They kissed for the last time and broke up. He sails out to sea. She was alone on the island. Odysseus degree. Every chance to live immortality with the goddess Qdim. But he chose a mortal life, to live and die with her. Chapter 4 is back. Odysseus was at sea for 17 days. The wind carried the boat towards it. After the same night, suddenly he saw the bottom of the boat touching the sand, and he's standing on dry land, tired after the journey. He rolled down the sand by the beach and fall asleep. The morning after waking up, Odysseus saw fog covering the area. He did not realize that this was Ithaca Island. Home, he thought belly. I must be lost in another strange land. He walked sadly back and forth on the beach. Then he met a teenager, dressed like a prince, holding a spear. What country is this? The boy replied. Oh, stranger, I must have come from a very distant place. This place is Ithaca Island. Odysseus flaming with the circus. And he's finally back home. But he didn't tell the boy. Who am I? You don't know that after all these years. Whether the young men of Ithaca glad to see you back, or not. So he pretended to be a Bretty. Pretend to come from home. On a Flonsian boat. God said. The Flemish promised to take him to Palos. But the wind crashed against the boat, and they went off course. That's why they came to this island to sleep on the beach. Even when you are drunk. The Odysseus gave up their mane. Leave him on the island. So the guy laughed. She became the powerful goddess, Athena. You speak very wisely, I said, but you don't know me. Even though I helped you in Troy, I have come to warn you that you are not to be identified with anyone, because in the palace, you have to face many dangerous enemies. Why didn't you help when you're in trouble at sea? Uria said, and now you're making fun of me. Is this really your home? I can't help you at sea. The water god, Athene replied, because I don't want to mess with him. The god of the sea, Poseidon, is angry that you blinded his son. He's a guy, but come here. I will show you that this is, indeed, eternal. Goddess shoved away white-painted village. Brother Odious, you can recognize his beloved home. Then the goddess showed him how to kill the rebels, even if you are alone among them. First of all, she used magic to turn him into an old man, with tired eyes and wrinkled skin. I'm disguising for you. Turn him into a beggar, ragged and dirty clothes, so that no one else can recognize him. Water, God said. Now go to the pig farmer, Mr. Search, and stay there until we give the... Your son is back, is now coming. I'll tell him to cut his hair. In the meantime, Amos will tell you everything that happened here. During the time you are away from home, you will understand why. Why am I telling you to be careful? The goddess Aditi disappeared, and Odious climbing over the hills to get to a farm where the pig herder dwells. Near the house on the farm, he saw the pig holding the Search, sitting alone in front of the door. Concert does not recognize Audit, but he treated the beggar very kindly. Take the passenger into the house. Bring food and wine to the tower. 2-on-2 and brave. Not a child like Mr. Odious, leaving his homeland on the hunt. The police officer said the penalty was a long time ago. Have met all kinds of misfortunes. When he saw the Odysseus returning from the war, everyone thought you were dead. Telematus was still a boy. Odysseus' father is old. There is no one left to rule the country. Ithaca is therefore not ruled by the young people on the island. But chickens grow up, while their father was busy fighting side by side, wearing the strength. There were 12 young men who wanted to marry her. They can pull about 100 more. Stay at the palace, where the Penelope is waiting for her husband. And all day, eating and drinking. They are crazy, so O1A, I dare to stop them. They said they wouldn't leave, as long as Penelope doesn't choose. Marry one of them. To marry him and make him king of Ithaca. They don't care that Telematus is the rightful prince, and always insulting you, treating you so openly. Finally, Theolope had to promise to marry a man, until she has woven a long, wide linen jar. All day she sat weaving, but at night, when the young men leave because they don't sleep in the palace, she took it all off in that day. But the young men were growing impatient, and the old man was afraid. Only tomorrow will they be determined to do so. The penalty is to choose one of them as a husband. After listening to the Oedicus, I couldn't hold back my tears. The book asks who he is. What news about the king? Missing from their country or not? Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, will surely return. He told the pig farmer the whole story about him. He said he was a native. I was crazy and had participated in the war. Later, he was shipwrecked and washed up in a foreign land. It is known that Odysseus is alive and will soon return to the country. Almost didn't believe the story she had just heard. But still, for the beggars and a good meal. As he ate, Oreus told the old man stories of the siege of the floating city until they have to go to bed. In the meantime, Goddess Athene to the house of Medius at Sparta and saw Teramatus lying down. But you haven't slept. The goddess tells you that, Terolope, your mother is having a really bad time. I advise you to return immediately. But back to the place. You've got to let your sailors into the city first, and you're alone across the hills to see the old pig farmer light out. Telepatus narrates visit to the goddess Athene with Malaz and Helen, then quickly say goodbye to them. Just as Telematus had left the palace of Bel, a falcon swooping down. He grabbed a big white goose eating on the grass, then fly away. The beautiful Helen explained the good omen to you. You saw the falcon coming down from the top of the hill and collect the goose. Let go, she said. Odysseus will return after many adventures. Take revenge on those who tried to harm you. In the same way, in fact, you're already united and are devising every strategy to defeat them. Overjoyed, thank you, Helen, for explaining the good omen. Then you get on a boat that's parked outside the harbor and immediately get on the boat back to where you let the sailors go to the city first. And I crossed the line to the pig farmer's house. You are Search and Odious. I just finished the fire in the morning. I saw the dogs on the farm running out to celebrate. A young man heading towards my house. As you get closer, Thomas realized it was Telematus and rushed out to meet him. When Telematus entered the house, Odious stood up, but the prince repaid the beggar's violent crime. And just sit still. They finished breakfast together. Tell the pig farmer to tell his mother, your son came home in peace. Search immediately into the palace. He pastured pigs. Just left. The farm dogs suddenly groaned. Looks panicked. I don't know why dogs are so scared, but he knew because he had seen the shadow of Athene. She only shows up to you. The last herd felt something strange. Terrible is coming towards the door. Athene told Odious to tell the truth. Tell the Telematus who you are. For now there are only 2 fathers left. She slowly put her magic wand on him. Let the Odious return to its original form. General 2-on-2. Strong and strong as a king. I can't see the goddess, Athene. And I didn't hear what she said. So that scene. That's what makes Telematus so amazing. I think stomach. This old beggar must be a god. But Aurea said, I am not a god, I am your father. And your fathers embraced each other and wept for joy. Aureus asked Telematus about the young men coming early in the palace, and they know that there's 108 of them. They're all young and healthy. Always wear glasses with you. But he didn't wear a hood or armor. Otis said that thanks to the goddess Athene, he hopes to wipe them all out. Then tell the Telematus to go back to the palace first. I will dress up as an old beggar. It will show up the next morning. He added Telematus. Take away from your ears the words of the young man who insults you. To try to find every opportunity. Take all the shields and weapons hanging on the wall, Jiang Great Hall, and hide it all in the armory. Insert next. Remember to keep the 2 swords, 2 spears, 2 shields that my father and my son will use. But don't tell anyone. The old beggar is my father. Till your father is finished talking about the next plan, together, before you search back. The goddess Athene turned Ortis into a beggar, and the clothes are ruined. Chapter 5. To the palace. The next morning, Telematus returned to the palace and comforted his mother. Tell me about the trip to Malaz and Helen. But Terramata's story doesn't help the penalty. Let's have some fun. Because she thought her cousin Helen was beautiful. He was the one who caused all the misfortune she had to endure. From then until now. Then Odysseus and the pig herder left for the city. I saw them enter the palace. A feeble old dog welcomed them. That's Agos, the love dog of Odysseus. The owner left the house to hunt. It's also an active little dog. But now it's too old and too weak. Be able to celebrate the Lord like any other day. After all these years, he still recognized Odious. Although he was dressed ragged as a beggar. Old dog wagged his tail, happily licking his hands. The owner is very satisfied. Then lie down and roll. Odysseus patted Agos to console it. Then turn around and hide the tears. Odysseus's old dog recognized him, but Adelope, his wife, did not recognize her husband. They met. Searched the house on the bridge. Odie sat down on the long wooden chair. Outside waiting for See, tell my grandmother. Search to bring bread and meat to the beggar. Aureus is good at eating. Look at the young men sitting at the big banquet table in the hall. After eating, he decided to try it. Is there anyone in the city? He's kind and generous. Or not, he went into the hall and asked them to. Some threw him bones and bread. One of them is called. I picked up a pea chair and taped it to my shoulder. Please take the life of Adidas. Before the day he got married. Odysseus whispered, please. Even the rest of us have to speak up. rebuked Antoinette. Knitting heartbeat. Old beggar. See that woman? Tell her to take the passenger to see her. But Odious asked for a message back. He was beaten by them in the hall. It should be left until evening. Wait until they're all gone. It is better to meet. The sunset fall. The 6 young men returned to their homes in the city. Elymatus and Odious removed the spears from the wall in the armory above the gypsy. Telematus to the bed. And Odious waited for Panderpie in the hall. After a while, she came. She asked who he was. Do you know anything about your husband or not? Odious praises her beauty, because she is still as beautiful as ever. Not answering what she asked, Perilapi asked again who he was. So he replied that he was a crazy prince. But he did not go to war. But did you meet Audis when the famous hero visit Crazy on the way to Drift? The stranger said he had met her husband. The cry is, but because I've heard so many people say enough lies about her husband. So she had to tell them that Otis was wearing raw sow, the beggar replied. Odysseus, in a purple shirt, wearing a dagger carved out of a hunting dog. That sounds like a penalty. Crying again in death. She said she gave him the shirt and that dagger. Now she was convinced that this beggar, I really met my husband. He continued to tell her. He heard that Odious was still alive. He has lost all his companions. On the way, the beggar also said, your Odysseus will return to Ithaca this year. I can't believe such a good ending. But she said, the old woman, cakes by a warm water wash feet for beggars. Odysseus, turn your face. Avoid the torch so that the old woman does not recognize him. But even so, you still feel like the boss. Let the old man wash his feet. She noticed the long scars caused by wild animals. On a hunting trip the day before, when he was not married, the old man knew exactly who he was. So she called him by the same name as before. Odious signaled for Grandma to attend the store, and she quietly went out. She said that Odious had left a big bow and 12 iron axes. Everyone has a round hole in the tongue. Before the day of hunting, he used to get these 12 axes in line, and then bow and shoot arrows through those 12 floors. This bow is very difficult to bend. It takes a strong person to pull the trigger when he wants to shoot. Therapy said, she promised. I'm going to bring a bow and a dozen bottles of wine out to 12 young men. Proposal to try. Whom will she marry? And shot arrows through all 12 Kie roads. The beggar said, this miserable beggar, Odious will be there. Before. By the time any of the 12 Kias had a chance, he smiled with panic. She said goodbye to him and went back to her. Odious fell to the floor. Jeongdai Hall to sleep. Chapter 6 unites the story. The next morning, as usual, 12 young men. Homerus went to the palace with enough friends. When they're all together, Perily scorned, looking at his 12 pursuers, and proudly say that if forced to marry, which tree will she choose? He shot 12 arrows through 12 round holes in a dozen bottles of wine. Belamatus stood up and said, let me try first. And if you can do that, you will. It doesn't allow. Take your mother out of her own house. I promise you that I will be stronger than you. 12 marriage proposals, in turn, try. But who's strong enough to hold that big? So Odysseus took him to the yard and asked, which side would you take if Odysseus returned? Will you fight for Odysseus or for the Kia boys? Because Odysseus, the old faithful pig herder, hung up. I wish Mr. Odious would be here today. That day is back, because I am odious, he said, and held up the old scar on his leg. Old man blanket cheating. The pig kissed his hand and cried for joy. Odious said, he will return to the hall. Please try the. And no matter what anyone said, he must also put the bow into his hand. Then tell all the women to get out of the hall. Then lock all the doors. Odysseus goes back to the search engine. One stuck guy proposed to Yang Innerbow, and that is. Angelo's told me to put off trying until another day, and they're pouring it on the drinking. The Audi. Come out, please try. The young men laughed contemptuously at him. But Porolapi, says beggar, you must also be allowed to try. She said that of course she would not marry him, even if you have a bow. She will give you a new dress, a sword and a spear, and will gladly let you go wherever you want. Theo Ronaldi went upstairs with the poets. She was so surprised. I see my son talking like the owner to put the bow in the hand of the Addis. The on-shop quietly locked the door. The young man mocked the passenger, but he suddenly stretched his bow all the way. It's as easy as a musician biting a string. He put an arrow on the tip, put it on the bow, and let arrows through all 12 holes in the Kia dynasty. He turned to me smiling. The other hand holds a spear next. Just one dance. Odysseus rushed to the door. He stood there holding the peacock and talking loudly. Now we're going to do something that no one's ever done before. He took a bow arrow. The name Angel does. Drinking wine in a cup. And the arrow pierced his throat. The cup fell to the floor. An angel does fall down on the table to die. See, the rest of you get it. Look around for the shield. But the wall is empty. You will die, and the falcon will. They screamed that the beggar had missed their hand. The arrow can kill. The dogs Odys despised, and you don't know who I am. You have squandered my inheritance. I thought I'd never come out. But today is the day of your doom. Potion sword raw you got. I'll use these tables as shields. Stop Kia's arrows. He drew his sword, but Odysseus shot an arrow through his chest. Take him down. Another one stormed into the Odysseus, but the Chalmatus launched the spear down his shoulder. At that time, a traitorous servant of Telemachus, it's called Meritus, climb up to the spears for 12 young men to propose to. But the goddess Athene came down. Give more Odysseus the courage. You need to be inspired by the goddess, because now the enemy surrounded him on 4 sides. The pagans came from all directions. The goddess Athene is to father and son Odysseus, courage to fight shepherd. So all the enemies are lying dead on the floor. Odysseus, the bullies, carry their bodies out into the and passionately, the lady washed away the golden hall. You're done cleaning up. They dragged the servant. The lotus raw killed for treason. Then they went to wash and clean and send someone to invite them. Come down and see what I've been wanting for so long. Odysseus is back, and all the young 7 Germans are dead. It's crazy. Or why did you wake me up for something so crazy? P.A. de Lupis. But the old man replied, really, it's not that silly. Odysseus is down the hall. He is the old beggar. I was beaten. She suspected humiliated by those kids. The beggar could be a god in disguise. To be ordinary. Or just some faggot impersonating Arius. She said sad. Odysseus is definitely dead. I left the body in some distant country a long time. Mrs. Arizona told her that her own eye saw the scar on his leg, but Peralty is suspicious. She also went down the hall, sitting by the pink fire, facing the Odysseus. He was still wearing the passenger's tattered clothes. Tired people, hands and feet covered in blood after the evil war, and she still doesn't recognize. She sat still and said nothing. Let Chalavatus blame Mother. Is a hard-hearted and cruel woman. I'm so confused I don't know what to say. But if this person is the Awisa, he must know things that apart from his mother, one who knows. I've come up with a way to know what's fake. Heard that Odysseus told Terramata. Go to the bathroom and change into clean clothes. And you, live. Shower for Odysseus. And rubbed perfumed oil all over him. Then she brought him new clothes to change. You look as brave and brave as before. He sat down in the chair next to the fire. And I thought you were the most beautiful and the cruelest in the world. A woman who can be so stubborn. Before the husband tasted the danger, suffering to return home, he turned to Ericla in a loud voice. Give me a bed right here. Let me sleep alone. Because her heart is hard as iron. Then Hanukkah used the trick to test it. She told Mrs. Arik, old lady, you've made a bed outside the bedroom that Odysseus himself built for us when we first got married, and put a solid bed in that room. Let me lay your back. How can I carry that bed out of the room? Odysseus, I didn't make that bed with a tree.
Goodbye. See you next time. Wishing you a day full of health and success.